Hi, I'm Chuck Dorsett for Weaver Leather Supply. Let's make a simple wet formed valet tray. Now for the new folks, this is a simple, fun project. It looks good and it makes a great gift. But the bigger point here, we're starting to get a feel for wet forming, and there are so many ways we can go with that. All right, so anything I use in this video, weaverleathersupply.com, or check below. We've got links there, going to take you straight to the website. Also, if you want to know when our videos release, just click your notifications. You'll know exactly when these come out. So let's step over to our pattern table, get started. Let's go over 3 valid points before we jump over and start cutting leather. So first off, the type of leather we're going to use. This is a natural veg tan. In fact, right here at Weaver, we've got a dyed veg tan. This is our holster leather. It's going to react exactly the same way. Now, weight-wise, if we think about it, a 4 to 5 ounce, when we form this, it's going to give us a very crisp corner. Well, the problem is we don't have a lot of durability there. Well, let's jump to the other end. Say an 8 to 9 ounce, ample durability, but it's just not going to form as tight a curve or corner or bend. So let's go a bit under the 8 to 9 ounce. Let's use a 7 to 8 ounce, or a 6 to 7 would be nice too. Now, for our molds, all kinds of possibilities in our kitchen, but just a word to the wise, and I'm just speaking from experience. When we borrow something, let's make sure we return it. Again, just speaking from experience. But right there, that's a simple ceramic valet. Makes a pretty nice form. Just a piece of cookware. Again, what we're going to go with is just a simple piece of terracotta. There we go. For a couple of reasons. First off, inexpensive, and we can pretty much find these everywhere. But secondly, the right size, about 7 inches across. And the third, I don't want too heavy of a bend here, because if we form that too tight, a heavier leather, it's going to start to wrinkle on us. But look how clean that is. That's what we're looking for. Okay, let's step over to our main table, start working on our pattern. And it's an easy pattern to make. So on our terracotta tray here, we're at about 6.5 inches across our base, and we've got a 1-inch rise. Well, I'm not going to hit that corner exactly, so let's back off on that a little bit. Let's come out 3/4 of an inch on either side. So that gives us 8 inches, or about 20.3 centimeters. Now, working on the poster board. So one of my favorite ways to go for a pattern, but it's not terribly durable. Let's jump over to our pattern sheeting. This makes a good, durable pattern, and we can use this time and time again. So we're at 8 inches across with our wing divider. Let's come out 4 inches. Good. And now, this is a little bit harder to see. Let's make sure I'm within my lines here, because I'm notorious for going off the edge. But let's see if I can get that. Good. Now, what I'm going to do is let's press hard. Let's get a center point. That'll help us out later. But let's take this and let's just drag this around, maybe 2 or 3 passes. That's more than enough for me to see to be able to cut. Okay, we've got that marked around. Now, I don't know if the camera can pick that up, but I can see that well enough. And actually, I've got a little bit of a groove. I think I can follow that. All right, so let's do this. Let's cut this as best we can. New blade every time. And let's trim that where we were a little bit light on our cut. Good. Okay. So, not a bad circle. Is yours perfect? Yeah, mine isn't either. It's not going to matter. Let's reset here, cut some leather. We're going to go with our Weaver Select Natural Veg Tan. This is my favorite veg tan leather. Now, for us crafters, we don't have to buy a full side to get a quality piece of leather. We sell 12-inch by 24-inch panels. And just giving that a ballpark view, we can get 3 valet trays out of 1 panel. Now with this, actually this is only about 8.5 inches across. So really we could skip pattern and go straight to this. Well, actually that's a little harder than it appears. First off, we've got to cut 360 degrees. But if this slips even a little bit, it's going to be hard to get back in our line. So let's go with a pattern, and let's use one of our heavy duty awls. Good thing about this pattern sheeting, it's got some good body to it. So let's scribe, and let's scribe in a good line, a line we can see all the way around. Good, I can easily see that. Again, new blade every time. Let's do our best to split that scribed line. Good. Perfect circle? Absolutely not, but it's going to look good. Okay, let's reset here. Take care of our edges. We're going to bevel and groove our edges. To me, this is about the best advice I can offer because a groove line, primary job is to sink a groove in the edge of our leather, typically if we're going to sew. I use this on every edge. Right there, all the difference in the world between an unfinished edge, our groove, and our bevel. Also, too, from time to time, we find a great leather where we can cut through the top grain, bring in a different color. That looks good. So anyway, groover, I use this on just about every edge. So right here, let's come in. I set mine at about 1/8 of an inch, and let's just groove all the way around. Good, we've got a nice groove line, very consistent. Next up, our edger, or a bevel. And if you think of bevel glass, that's exactly what we're doing. We're knocking off the hard top edge, top and bottom. So therefore, we're going to slick and round our edge. We're going to go with a number 2. This is about the bottom end for a number 2. But really, this is going to take off about 1/3 and 1/3, which is almost perfect. There we go. If our edges weren't perfect, that's going to help just a little bit. Let's do the same thing on the back side. Now over here, this is not going to edge as easily, but let's just work at it. Well, that looks good thus far. Okay, let's step over to our pattern table and wet form this. For wet forming most projects, we simply need some water and our fingers. Now, we can wet form with dye. Well, yes and no. It's a mess. It can be a mess, but the bigger problem, if we're using anything other than black, it's most likely going to pool where we're pressing down. It's going to be terribly inconsistent. This is going to be perfect. So let's go with some water. Now let's dip our project in. We want to get this fully wet. I would say give it just about maybe 8-10 seconds. Let's lay that out. Good, got plenty of water in that. Let's give that about maybe 10 minutes. Let that water wick thoroughly through. We've given this 10, maybe 15 minutes dry time, but I can tell when I touch the leather, a little moisture pulls up. That leather's got as much water in it as it will take. We don't want to stamper tool at this point. It would simply be mushy. So let's jump over to our mold. Let's lay this in as evenly as we can, and let's just slowly start to work this in. Good, well just one pass, we've already got a good form going here. So let's just slowly work this down, another 30 seconds give or take. Okay, now let's take our thumbs and let's just go a little bit harder around the base, right in that corner. Well, that looks good. How clean, consistent, and easy, right? Okay, so over the next hour, I'm going to come back over about every 15 minutes, and I'm just going to work it down into that corner. Then after that, we need to give this about 12 hours, maybe overnight to dry. Ample dry time. How consistent and clean does that look? And how easy is that? Now, I mentioned a bone. We could always use a bone and work that really tight down into that bottom corner. But in all honesty, that's going to be hard to get that consistent when we're already there. Okay, let's jump over to our main table, drop in some dye. The one thing I'm looking for in my dye is consistency. So we're going to dip dye. It's the only way I dye leather. And in fact, dyeing leather doesn't have to be messy, expensive, or time-consuming. Now, we could always go with our dressing sponges. In fact, this is a larger piece. I tend to cut these down to make them go a little bit further. But again, if we're applying this with a sponge, it's going to be hard to get that consistent. Same with our daubers. These are great for smaller projects, but it's going to take some time to get dye on this, and again, not going to be consistent. So let's just dip dye. But the only reason I can dip dye is we're going with a pro dye. It's the only dye I use. We're going to go with a walnut. That's a beautiful color. It's a little bit darker than a medium brown. So let's start with some gloves. Good. Now let's set this aside because we're going to come back to that. So again with dip dyeing, I just need to dip. And there we are. That's all we need. So let's let some of that excess dye drain off. Good. Okay, let's lay that flat. Now, we're wet again. That's exactly right. So let's do this. Typically, most of our projects have a small hole, so we can just use a hook, drag it through the dye, and lay it down. We're not really touching it. But now I've got dye on these gloves. So let's change these over to a clean pair. You can tell this is already starting to dry. That dye's wicking in nicely. Okay, let's jump back over to our form. Let's just drop in some simple plastic wrap. And now let's drop our bowl back in that. Good. Now, because we've got our clean gloves, we can absolutely work this a little bit more. But it's going to dry a lot faster than our water. So there we go. Let's leave that right there. Give it about 2 hours. We've given this a little bit more than 2 hours. But now I can pull it out. I can feel this. It's good and dry. Now, dye cleanup. We just need a paper towel and a simple, inexpensive funnel. Let's store our dye in the original bottle. That way, the carrier won't evaporate, making it thicker. But as containers go, yeah, we eventually will start to build a collection of containers. In fact, I can even dye a briefcase panel in this larger container. Okay, so we're going to go with a top coat. We've got a pretty consistent bowl here, but it's very flat. Let's add a top coat. This is going to somewhat seal our leather, but it's going to give it a nice low gloss, and it's going to enrichen our dye color. So my all-time favorite, first off, because it's so easy to apply, but secondly, this is going to enrichen the dye color. That's what we're looking for. Now with a leather balm, I'm going to keep 2 rags. I'm going to use a wet rag to apply, a dry rag to buff. Now with our leather balm, let's just go very sparingly. In fact, I tell you what, let's take this out of our form. There we go. Okay, just a little bit, and again, somewhat sparingly, and let's just work our way out. Good. Okay, let's come up and let's just hit our top edge. Very nice. Okay, let's give that about 10, maybe 15 seconds of dry time. And just a short amount of dry time. So let's take our buffing rag and now let's buff. Oh, there we go. We've got a nice low gloss to that. Very clean, very professional. Okay, let's go to our top edge. I'm going to add just a little more leather balm and let's just hit that top edge. Good. Okay, let's come back with our dry rag and let's just wipe off some of the excess. Yeah, that's darkening that edge a little bit. Makes a nice touch. So now let's take a slicker. Basically, we're going to round our edges. We're going to slick our edges. So let's go with maybe about the bottom cut there. And I'm just going to slowly work this around. Okay, now I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up. It's a small edge. But this now has become slick, rounded, even a little bit glossed. Very professional touch. But you'll also notice too, this was a little inconsistent after we buffed with our leather balm. We just give that a little time and that's going to wick right in. It's going to be very consistent. Okay, now the best part. We've got one more step because now we're going to look at all the possibilities to decorate our valet tray. One of the best parts of leathercraft is we can take the most simple project and blow it up. In fact, this table is not big enough to hold all the possibilities, but let's at least talk about a few because I hope there's something in here that you love and it takes you in a whole new direction, or there may be a thread to an idea here that leads you into something absolutely your own. Okay, there's going to be a lot of talk here and I'm going to do my best not to forget anything, but you're going to get a feel of how many possibilities there are. So right here, let's start with something simple. Just our suede. Now, suede's used for saddle seats because it's got good grip on it, okay? How about we cut a circular piece about the same size as the inside of our bowl. Glue that on the bottom. That's not going anywhere, but it's going to add a little weight to it as well. Suede on the inside, cut that same piece, and maybe we just lay that in the bottom, glue that in the bottom. That's a nice touch. Or we just bring that all the way up and line the entire valet tray. All kinds of possibilities. We've got some of the prettiest suede colors I've ever seen. Letter stamps, always a possibility. We could drop in somebody's name or maybe a date or initials. Easy way to go there. Stamping, absolutely. All kinds of possibilities to add a stamp. Our molds, we talked about that. Just about any of the big discount box stores, they have all kinds of shapes. I actually have one that I bought that's a Christmas tree, and it's got strings of lights across it. That I have yet to use it, but I'm dying to make a mold with that. Tooling, absolutely unlimited possibilities there. We could even make our own designs with leather. So say with our form, we could glue our leather design down onto our form. We could mold that all at one time. Mold our design and our shape all at once. Filigree cut, one of my all-time favorites, absolutely. Say we get our bowl and we cut any kind of a design in the bottom of that, bring in our suede. It's going to shore it up. It's going to add some grip to it. But that is going to be beautiful. Now, here's a really cool one. I'm dying to try this because I know a couple of people. This would be the coolest, most unique gift ever. We did a video on the pirate map arm guards. How about we drop in a pirate map right here? That would look great. So again, so many possibilities. We're just scratching the surface here. But leave your bowl right where it is because it's beautiful, or blow it up. It can be a little overwhelming. So here's the answer. Let's just make more than one. Let's make as many as we have designs for. I hope your valet trays are beautiful, and I hope you have a great time both designing and creating these and making them your own. Good luck with your projects.